One of the toughest jobs here since the financial crisis has been running agribusiness elders. CEO Malcolm Jackman arrived in 2008 to face a company leveraged to the hilt, only then to be hit by drought, threatening government policies on water and the live cattle export ban. But as we slowly wake up to food security and foreign ownership issues, Elders looks pretty interesting. Well, Malcolm Jackman is a member of the government's Food Policy Working Group and he joins me from Adelaide now. Malcolm Jackman, welcome.
Good evening, Tiki. Good to be with you.
Well, as I mentioned, you have had one of the toughest rides as CEO over recent time. Did you ever think Elders would go to the wall over that period?
Look, there's been a couple of times where we describe it as staring into the abyss, and another couple of times, as we call those, come to Jesus moments. But we do seem to have weathered that storm, and the company has been doing that for nearly 175 years. So there's a fighting spirit within Elders. Yeah, and a big responsibility for you, I guess. You won very recently an 8-year battle with the tax office, which gave you $40 million. And your forestry assets that you're trying to still sell down, they're proving quite challenging, I think. But what's your outlook going forward now? Well, look, we're looking at simplifying the business, obviously, by getting out of the forestry assets, and we're making progress there, slowly but surely, but we have a plan for each and every one of them, and we're getting there. And look, when you look at the thematics around agriculture, as you talked about the National Food Policy Working Group and the food plan that came out last year, I think people get a real sense that agriculture is really coming of age again in Australia.
Let me move to food security and indeed foreign investment in agribusiness, because it's news just even today. A lot of tension between a Labour government, I think, wanting to build relationship with China and concerns voiced most recently by Tony Abbott over sovereign investments. Seems to be quite a bit of mischief making here. Where do you sit on this?
Look, generally, it doesn't matter what you say about foreign ownership, about farming in Australia, you will upset somebody. So I apologise to the group I'm about to upset on the way through. But we have been debating this for ever since the Commonwealth was formed in 1901. And the simple answer is Australia just does not have enough investment capital to do some of the things we want to do. So investment in agriculture in Australia for offshore countries is important. China, which is where a lot of the debate is, produces a complexity because most of the companies are directed from the state level. But nonetheless, we need that foreign investment. We still own the land. It's going to be our people that work the land. It's going to be our government that controls what happens at the borders as to where the produce goes on the way through from that. So I do think it's a very emotive topic, but in reality, I think the practicalities is we need to just keep going. We complained about the POMs in 1901, hit the headlines big time back then, and they're still the largest owners of agricultural land, or foreign owners of agricultural land in Australia now.
Well, let me put to you what I believe will be an early test, which is the sale of Ord 2, 15,000 hectares up in the Kimberley there. Now, one of the players is said to be this Chinese group Zhongfu that we've been following. Reports that they want to develop a major sugar industry up there. They actually are not a sovereign wealth fund, but they could well lock up a considerable supply for sugar in China. They won't be making sugar lumps up there. They're not into value add, which I know is something that you really care about. I mean, is this something that we should be doing?
Well, I think it is, because the reality of life is that we already feed 60 million people, so we're a big net exporter of agriculture. The world needs to double its food production. We need to be part of that growth story. We need money to do that, and we don't have the money here in Australia. I think the opportunity for us is that we need to be thinking about how we feed that burgeoning middle class across Asia, and where's the opportunity for us to add value to our agricultural exports, rather than sticking with the minimally processed exports that we have at the moment.
Well, let me move to something that I noticed the Nestle chief, Mr. Letmata, said about biofuels the other day. He said politicians have not understood that the food market and the oil market are the same. But the food market, you need 2,500 calories per person a day, whereas in energy you need 50,000 calories per person. So when the politicians want to replace 20% of fossil fuels with biofuels, crop production, he reckons, has to expand threefold. What do you think about the world's decision on biofuels?
Oh, look, I think there's absolutely no doubt what he says is absolutely true. And you actually see it, particularly in North America, that most of the small ethanol plants are actually produced by farmer co-ops across the Corn Belt. And there's a company, a big co-op in the US, called CHS. It's rated, I think, about number 70 in the Fortune 100. It's a farm supplies business and it's a gasoline business. They brought the two together to form this huge farming co-op.
But do you think that biofuels should be pushed?
Not necessarily, but then it doesn't necessarily need to be food that you're using. So we will see the emergent, for example, probably not soon enough for us in our forestry assets, but we will see our forestry assets turned into biofuels in one shape, form or another as we go forward as well. I think what we're waiting for is some of the technology that will allow us to use some of those products to do that.
I have so many more questions for you, but Malcolm Jackman, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Our pleasure, Tiki. Thank you.